Ani Busu. I decided to do a video for my critique of the two articles, the one on critical race theory and tribal critical race theory, as well as implications for Indigenous education. So I definitely prefer tribal critical race theory to the plain old CRT, because CRT focuses strictly on black and white relations and does not include any other color, anyone else, any other background, or it's just it's a very narrow theory. I also have issues with it in the fact that it is totalitarian and Marxist. At its core, it wants everybody to be the same. And I am very proud to be an individual, and became an individual because I was an outcast my whole life. And so I decided, well, you know what? Y'all never really accepted me, so forget it. I'm not even going to bother trying. I'm just going to be me, and I'm very happy being me. It's taken a while, but I'm good with it. I also have issues with the fact that it's against freedoms. The fact that everybody has to buy in. This mask wearing is a perfect example. Doesn't matter where you live in Canada, or sorry, in Ontario, you have to wear a mask. So you live in Algonquin Park, middle of nowhere, with a town of 2,500 people, and you have to wear a mask. No, I don't understand that. Freedom's being erased. It's also very circular. So the premise is that if you have white privilege, then you have to be an anti-racist. But you can't be an anti-racist without acknowledging that you have white privilege, in which case you can't be an anti-racist. So it's like a snake eating its tail. I find it very confusing. By definition of their privilege, they can never be an anti-racist. It assumes negative intention always exists. So, for instance, I was walking to the restroom in a restaurant, and I happened to knock the chair of a person of color, so a black person in this case, and I walk by because I'm in a hurry, I really have to pee, and I don't say sorry. It could be that I just really have to pee, and it's not that I did it because this person was black sitting in the chair, so I didn't feel the need to apologize. Critical race theory implies that I didn't apologize because the person was black, and that's why I didn't do it, because of I guess the appearance of white privilege, because I superficially appear white, and as Ray Bradbury, thousands of colors. And anyway, critical race theory is a product of colonialism. So right there, I have issue with it, because all it really does is provide us with a new master, in scare quotes. It just changes the colonial leader from one color to another. Tribal critical race theory I liked more, because it's definitely a blending of knowledges, and it's designed to bring people up, whereas critical race theory is very oppositional. Yeah, you can't, like, if black people do well, it's because a white person is convenient for a white person. Whereas with tribal critical race theory, we're not looking for somebody to blame, it to be somebody's fault in the same way. It's more that we want to be able to live our own ways, have sovereignty. And sovereignty means self-determination. Sorry, I have notes. Self-determination and exposing structural inequities and assimilation processes. It's about survival, not oppressor versus victim. Survival means the maintaining of our Indigenous ways of knowing and being, and we've had them for time immemorial. And what we are trying to do with tribal critical race theory is a blend of European ways of knowing and being and Indigenous ways of knowing and being. The two can actually exist within the same area. And when you have two beds of knowledge that you can grab from, it's infinitely more powerful and useful than simply restricting yourself to one way of knowing or being. It's the strategic use of multiple forms of knowledge generates power that is situated, dynamic, and historically influenced. That's a direct quote from the article. Power in Indigenous tribal critical race theory is that we want sovereignty. Again, sovereignty will equal community, and it will be all based on self-determination. Sorry, my dog's joined us. Assimilation, to a certain degree, is necessary, but not forced assimilation. It must be an assimilation that we see as useful to achieving the tribal and Indigenous sovereignty. Community is essential in Indigenous cultures, and in many ways, it doesn't appreciate the individual, but it still acknowledges it in a way that in the way that critical race theory just wants everyone to be the same. Again, very Marxist. We all have to march in the same way and wear the same clothes and look the same. And if you aren't with us, then you're against us, then you're bad. I don't like things being set up and diametrically opposed that way, because life is so full of gray that it's shocking. Again, 50 shades there are. Sorry, I had to do it. Anyway, Buckhart has a quote that says about Indigenous communities, "We are, therefore I am." So we value our communities so much that, for instance, for me, I'm taking this course because I want to go back to my community, in Jickaning, Rama, and be able to help the community and help Aurelia and the area around there, or other Indigenous communities, because I want to bring my knowledge back to the community versus setting it up where I'm just looking for someone to blame. I don't find blame is useful, and that's one thing I really appreciate about Indigenous cultures, especially residential school victims. It's not about blame so much as we need to recognize and we need to move forward. There has to be a component of activism and action in tribal critical race theory and in Indigenous education in general. We need to expose the structural inequities and assimilation processes that are inherent in our education system and have been since the inception of the education system. We have come very, very far off track from the teaching wigwam that was originally the intention. So, unfortunately, abstract theories create abstract action, so it doesn't change the real situation. So we can read these papers, and it's great, and we can think, wow, my brain is working out. But if we don't actually formulate them into some sort of an education plan, so again, I have taken actually a lot of the advice that I've received from other courses and applied it to my teaching in order to educate students about Indigenous issues and incorporating more Indigenous ways of knowing and being into their daily lives. Again, all things must be done in consultation with an Indigenous community and not without them. Okay, miigwech.